Hello everyone, welcome to the spoiler talk for Peacemaker Season 2, and just like with Daredevil Born Again Season 1, I already did episode talks for this, so basically this is just gonna be a compilation of the spoiler talks all crammed together into one big video because of the fact that I don't really know how else to do this kind of stuff. I already did the spoiler talks technically in the episode talks, so then let us get started immediately by talking about that old Justice League scene. Yeah, that has been retconned in this new season with the fact that we get basically a previously on, but there's a bunch of new stuff. And for example, like the Aquaman jokes were instead about Green Lantern, and also the Justice League is the Justice Gang, and also Supergirl's there. What? Why is Supergirl part of the Justice Gang? Like, okay, sure. I mean, we have like Superman, Supergirl, and then like the others. So cool. However, that still doesn't work in my head because I'm like, I need an actual explanation how this happened, and the show doesn't give you that. The show is not going to give you that. They're just going to retcon the first season's like Justice League scene and move on like it never happened in that sense. So I have my own headcanon, and that is basically what I like to call Crisis on Infinite Earths, boys. Because in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover, we have Ezra Miller's The Flash. And after the crossover, you can see that the universes have changed. For example, Earth 2 is not the Earth 2 from Flash. It is the Earth 2 that contains Stargirl, for example. Like, that Earth is just entirely changed. So basically, after Peacemaker Season 1, we have Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then we have Creature Commandos. Not Peacemaker Season 2, but Creature Commandos, Superman, and then Peacemaker Season 2 in that sense. Anyway, this episode starts off about 6 months before the season premiere, I guess you could say, and Eagle wakes up Chris. He doesn't want to get up. Also, it's too cold outside, so he lets Eagle fly in the quantum chamber. And he sees a guy, and he's like, "Hey, man!" And the dude doesn't say hi, and that was a joke that was actually, I think, in the trailer, if I remember correctly, because later on, he's like, that guy is a prick because he never says hi, that kind of stuff. So Eagle wants to go through another door, and then Peacemaker sees a bunch of like Peacemaker helmets, like, ooh, what is this? So he puts in his code to that door, and it works. So the door opens up, he goes inside, he sees his dad, which according to the previously on is dead. Like I said, don't really fully remember Peacemaker Season 1. But anyway, his dad is there. Then he runs out to close the door. Like, he just gets scared immediately. Then afterwards, we jump to about 6 months later, and Leota picks up Peacemaker, and they are going to a place where Peacemaker is gonna have an interview to join the Justice Gang. And also, he is a bit curious about Harcourt, but he wants to be a real superhero. That is what he wants to be. And to be honest, he might have what it takes outside of, you know, the killing stuff. So they arrive, and then a bunny girl walks out, which I don't know who you are. Apparently her name is White Rabbit. It's actually a character from the comic books, but White Rabbit. So then Peacemaker goes in and he gets interviewed. However, the thing is that the mic is kind of broken, so when you turn it off, it actually still keeps it on. It's always on in that sense. So basically, they ask Peacemaker a question, turn off the mic, and then basically talk bad about him. However, he can hear all that stuff. Also, Hawk Girl has a big butt, which, hey baby. But after a while of the interview just going nowhere in that sense, he's like, "Am I supposed to be able to hear you guys?" And then they're like, "Oh no, but that other girl, the White Rabbit one, I was talking about how you could see her." Well, okay, we're just not gonna talk about that on this channel, but anyway, I was talking bad about her too, and all the other ones. Oh no. Oh, and also, this is actually the first official instance of Sean Gunn playing Maxwell Lord, because he had a little cameo in Superman, but like, it wasn't really enough. But now we get to see more of him, and I don't know what to think about it. I don't even know how big of a character Maxwell Lord is, but I feel like maybe Maxwell Lord fans are gonna be a little bit upset by the casting, but I don't know. But anyway, when they turn back to Peacemaker, he's gone, angry. Also, Harcourt can't get a job at any intelligence agencies. That's a long word. Because of the fact that apparently she is suffering from toxic masculinity. It's like, ah boy. But they actually play it as a joke in that sense. They're not making a statement about how men are toxic masculinity and stuff like that. It's just basically she has anger issues. I don't know why they didn't just say that, but they should have just said she has anger issues, because afterwards she gets into her car and basically breaks her hand on the dashboard. Then afterwards Peacemaker goes over to her and they have a little bit of a talk. Apparently they had a good time together, but that was a one-time only thing, sadly enough. So then Chris goes home. He is a little bit sad. He gets a whole party that I'm not gonna talk about anymore, and afterwards he opens up the door to the quantum chamber, at which point And while this is happening, Adrian also calls John about owl facts because, I don't know, he needs contact with other people, I guess. I don't know. But then Argus detects a anomaly, I guess you could say, at Peacemaker's house. And it's kind of like that thing that they detected from Superman, which is the reference to Superman. But basically, the pocket universe, when Peacemaker opens the door, they can detect it. Also, Rick Flag Sr. is the head of Argus. So then John goes to the house and he, like, looks around, sees a bunch of naked people. And then afterwards, he sees Peacemaker standing at that door. However, he lies to Argus about, you know, what Peacemaker is doing there. And also, Rick Flag wants to have someone else overseeing John because he doesn't trust John. Alright, cool. But anyway, Peacemaker then goes through the door. He walks over to the other universe, I guess, puts in the door code, opens the door, goes through, and then he goes outside and he sees his brother alive, who was actually dead in his universe. And then his dad is there too, so they have a little bit of a family time, family fun. Meanwhile, Harcourt, back in our universe, gets into a bar fight, and John also goes over to Leota in order to ask what to do about Peacemaker, because of the fact that he doesn't want to betray Peacemaker, but he also wants to know what Peacemaker is up to. So Leota's like, okay, fine, I'm gonna ask him, because that is the reason why he was here. So then afterwards, the brother and the dad go to bed, and then Peacemaker, I guess, goes to his room or whatever, and then the other Peacemaker comes home. So they have a little bit of a fight. Well, it's a one-sided fight. Our Peacemaker just tries to leave as fast as possible, but that Peacemaker's not making it easy and keeps attacking him. So then afterwards, they are in the quantum chamber, and the attacks keep happening until eventually Peacemaker activates the jetpack right before he's about to be killed, the other Peacemaker's jetpack, and he flies up to a spike, so he's sadly enough dead. So yeah, that's a way to end the first episode. So this starts off with 8 months ago, where John is showing Rick Flag around Argus because he was just made director of this place and he wants to report on his son's death. However, John is a little bit hesitant, but eventually he caves and gives it to him. And he reads it, and it's like, ah boy, Peacemaker killed my son. He is very upset. And he then goes over to the woman Bordeaux and is like, hey, set a surveillance on Peacemaker. Because of the fact that if Peacemaker does anything wrong, it's going to be bad for him. Because that will give Rick Flag a reason to arrest him. Meanwhile, back in present day, we literally start off right where we left off. Where we have a dead Peacemaker from another universe. And Peacemaker tries to hide the body but fails at it. So then he calls someone, which later on turns out to be Vigilante, about a saw or something like that. So I guess he's gonna cut up the body. Also, Leota, before going to Peacemaker, goes to her ex's house in order to grab some stuff, and she's not really happy about that. And one of the reasons, I guess, their relationship fell apart was because of the fact that they were supposed to go to Gotham. And I'm like, well, I'm on Leota's side on this one. Because who in their right mind wants to go to Gotham? Haven't you read any Batman stories? That place is god-awful. You don't want to go there, okay? Just saying, you don't want to live in Gotham. That is like a no-no. Okay, I know bad stuff happens all around the DC world because, you know, stories need to happen and all that stuff. But, like, Gotham is special for how terrible it is. It is literally just a city full of crime. Also, Harcourt is in the store and she's ready to buy some stuff. Then a woman is like, hey, if you're abused, you can tell me and I can give you some help. And she's like, I wasn't abused, because of the fact that, you know, she has a black eye because she got in a bar fight, you know, that kind of stuff. But the woman automatically thinks she got abused. And I know, man, some people might be upset about a scene like this, but yeah, I get it. I mean, it is a sad thing that women do get abused, and also it is a sad thing that the women who get abused, they don't really see the fact that they get abused, so they stay in the relationship, or, you know, their brain is just telling them, I can change him, or something like that. Or, I was in the wrong, that kind of stuff. I don't really understand a woman's brain, but hey, that is basically how some of them work, and that is why, you know, this is kind of a thing. But it is sad that that keeps happening. It should not happen. Also, John gets a partner on the surveillance, that being Langston, who apparently likes Leota. I don't see it, but first of all, I'm not into fat chicks, and second of all, I'm also not really into black chicks. But to be honest, the fat part was really the part where I was like, really? But hey, everyone has their taste. This just goes to show there is someone for everyone. Even if you are chubby or fat, there is a guy who likes you. Just hope he's not one of those, like, feeder guys who likes to feed their women and then basically kill them in that sense. You know, just disgusting people. Some people are just disgusting. Anyway, Leota is here because of the fact that, well, I guess she wants to talk about the room. And also, Langston has bird blindness, which comes back later on in the episode, but there's some some jokes about that. But anyway, Peacemaker's like, the room was there when I was a kid, okay? My dad made it or found it or whatever. Doesn't really matter. My dad had it. And basically, I didn't really touch it until recently. And it's like, yeah, but Argus can see that when you touch it. And also, Rick Flag Sr., he's the head of Argus, and he knows that you killed his son. So, maybe you should give this room to Argus as a good faith present, because if they find this, you are in so much trouble, okay? You're gonna be sent back to jail. And he's like, no, it's mine. So then Vigilante comes to visit because he's here obviously for the dead body. They go inside. Peacemaker gets rid of the nudity, and then afterwards they go into the dimension, which obviously gets a read. However, Bordeaux calls and says don't do anything to Langston, and also tells Langston not to tell this to John, but once John and Peacemaker are gone, sweep the house, because apparently later on John is going to go with Peacemaker and Harcourt and also Leota and Vigilante for a little bit of a get together. So while they are over there, that is when the strike team will infiltrate the house in order to search for whatever was causing this, because we cannot have another Superman situation from that Superman movie, obviously. I do like how this is very well connected, because also, just saying, in the beginning of this episode, we also got some flashbacks to the Suicide Squad. Now, in case you don't remember, my headcanon is the fact that the Crisis on Infinite Earth rebooted the universe in that sense, and that is how certain things remained the same while other things changed. That is basically explained in the final episode of Crisis on Infinite Earth, because while the seasons of Flash have happened in a way, the way that they have happened, Supergirl's always been on the same Earth as the Flash, which is not really something that happened before. They had to go through portals in order to get together and all that stuff. So there are changes, but also some same stuff. That is my headcanon. But I did like the references to, you know, or like the shots of the Suicide Squad. So then afterwards, Vigilante and Peacemaker, they take care of the dead body. And that is when the alien guy comes out and he basically tells him to piss off because the dude never says hi. That joke from the trailer. I think it was from the trailer. Might have been from a clip. I don't remember. To be honest, I didn't really pay much attention to the marketing of this show because I was obviously going to watch it anyway. So then afterwards, he sits in his room and he looks at the phone of his dead self, and he sees a bunch of images of Harcourt and him being together, and it's like, oh god, everything is perfect in that other universe. But then afterwards, he leaves in order to go to the get-together together with Leota, and the get-together is going to be at Harcourt's place because of the fact, which also John arrives at as well, but because of the fact that, well, that's really the only place where we could have the get-together. And also Eagly hates Harcourt, apparently. So we have a little get-together. It is a very nice get-together. Meanwhile, the strike team goes inside, and two of them find the special door, and then Eagly attacks the whole team and takes them all out. W for Eagly, boys. W for Eagly. So then back at the party, Peacemaker and Harcourt, they don't really hit it off, okay? Because he tries to be nice to her, but she's like, I'm not some kind of damsel. It's like, that's not what he was saying, okay? He just really wants to be with you and protect you, like any man would. That doesn't mean you're a damsel in distress. Stop being stupid. It is how we are wired. It's how we are programmed. It is what we are supposed to do. And it has nothing to do with like being stronger or, you know, working. It also has to do with the fact that if we are lying in bed together and there's some noise downstairs, that I have to go downstairs to sacrifice myself. That kind of stuff. That is the stuff that we have to do, okay? And that is what he wants to do for her. He wants to love her. And she, in a way, kind of rejects him because, well, it's her. And we need a reason for Peacemaker to go to the other Earth. Yay. So then afterwards, he comes home fully drunk, has a little bit of a bonding moment with Eagly. Does not notice that the whole house is basically or at least his room is fully in shreds and all that stuff, but he doesn't necessarily care about that. Then afterwards, he grabs his doppelganger's phone, opens it up, sends a text to Harcourt, which is not delivered. Afterwards, he's like, you know what, I don't care anymore. He puts in the code, opens the door, and heads over to, apparently, according to the wiki, Earth 2, which, just saying, because of the whole Crisis thing, I would love it if they were able to make a reference to Stargirl. I know it's far-fetched, but like in the new multiverse of the Arrowverse, I guess you could say, Earth 2 is actually Stargirl's Earth. So it would be nice if we got a little reference, maybe. Like, I know it's asking for much, and James Gunn is probably not gonna do it, but like, it would be nice. But even if we don't get it, as long as we don't get to see too much of Earth 2, I think we'll be fine. So he goes there. Apparently, the dad is searching for Peacemaker, something like that. I don't know. And then afterwards, the text gets delivered, and she apparently sends a text back saying hey and also a broken heart. So yeah, I guess the next episode Peacemaker's just gonna stay here on Earth too because of the fact that here everything is awesome, boys. 3 years ago, A.R.G.U.S had a relationship with Rick Flag, who was cheating on June. You remember the Enchantress from the first Suicide Squad movie. Continuity and all that stuff. Well, continuity to the old universe, as you could say. And also, he is scared to break up with her because she's a witch. So that is, she might not take it well. So that might not be the best idea. But we do know that she's alive. So, the 2 Enchantress fans are gonna be very happy about that one. Meanwhile, Chris gets woken up by his brother in the other world, obviously. And he basically takes his time a little bit, looks at his phone, and is like, oh no, I'm late because she wanted to meet in like the morning and it's almost afternoon. I have to hurry up. So he brushes his teeth, or like she wanted to meet up like at like 12 or something like that. But anyway, he brushes his teeth, he grabs some clothing, he talks to his brother about the Kardashians, which don't exist on this world. It's like, okay, another good thing, I guess. And then afterwards, he drills his brother about where he needs to go. And also, apparently, this universe's Peacemaker has a peace cycle, boys. So he gets on that thing, puts on the different helmet, and drives off. And everybody along the way loves Peacemaker, because how can you not? Meanwhile, back on the, you know, main Earth, I guess you could say, A.R.G.U.S is the only one who is not hung over, because everyone else is very much hungover after the party. And then she kind of gets drilled a bit by Amanda Waller's kid, who I forgot her name. Sorry. Leota. There you go. That's the one. I think that's the one. So Leota basically grills her about her and Peacemaker, and she's like, it's not going to happen. So I understand now why he left this world. Also, Adrian likes spiders and crows. However, he knows nothing about spiders, as later on is revealed by John. So that Peacemaker arrives at A.R.G.U.S where other A.R.G.U.S is. He goes inside. The eye scan works because of course it works. You're another version of him, meaning you have the same DNA. So it's all gonna work out. So he does the eye scan, it works. He goes inside and dang, it's Rick Flag. Of all the people he didn't want to see, it's Rick Flag, the guy that he died, and the reason why his house is fully under surveillance. This is horrible, horrible. But he does not know about the fact that Peacemaker killed him. So, we're good to go. So he just has to play friendly. Then he wants to go over to A.R.G.U.S, which Rick Flag Jr. actually becomes very upset about because, as revealed later on, apparently her and Rick Flag are dating. So that's fun. Also, back on main Earth, John gets called in by Bordeaux because of the fact that Eagly basically took out the whole A.R.G.U.S squad. So he has to go to the hospital immediately in order to basically brief and join in the hunt in that sense. So then Peacemaker spends the day with A.R.G.U.S, which is very nice. And then he kind of wants to, you know, explore things with her. And she's like, yeah, but if I want to explore things with you, I don't want to be heartbroken again. But there is a chance. That is what she's basically saying. She might reconsider. However, then the Sons of Liberty attack. So then nobody really knows what to do because they have hostages. And Peacemaker looks at the building next to it, sees the big billboard. It's like, all right, that's my way in. He goes inside. He goes upstairs. He climbs the billboard, then jumps inside the building. And one by one, he takes everyone out. Until eventually he gets a gun and shoots the rest of them. A helicopter also shows up for pickup, but there's no one to pick up because Peacemaker basically killed everyone. Afterwards, Peacemaker has to go to the bomb because you gotta defuse that bad boy. So he goes to the bomb in order to defuse it, and it's just an easy pull the plugs, like 3 plugs, and everything is fine. So he defused the bomb. Meanwhile, his brother takes out the helicopter, so that's nice as well. And the day is saved. Yay, fantastic. You done did it. You done did a good job, Peacemaker. Fantastic. You two make an amazing team. So then back on main Earth, John arrives at the hospital, and apparently John said Eagle. The other guy heard duck, so it's unknown. But anyway, Bordeaux has an idea. We're gonna attack with a strike team. However, we also have that guy with us, Yondu, who is here in order to be the eagle hunter. And it's like, oh, great. Okay, yep. I mean, hey, I know people are upset about, like, you know, James Gunn inviting his friends over, but this is Peacemaker, so I truly do not care, okay? The only one I feel like you can really complain about is Maxwell Lord, because he's more of a bigger character. Having one of his friends be an eagle hunter, I don't really think that's necessarily a problem. But the moment that I heard his voice, I was like, Yondu, my boy, thought you were dead. But the soldiers, they head over to Chris's place. Also, John gets teamed up with Rip Jagger, which I don't know who that is, but I've forgotten season 1, and also I don't really know much from comic lore in that sense, and I don't think that idiot has appeared outside of the comics maybe a lot, so I don't know. Anyway, after the good day, he has a heartfelt talk with with his brother, and then Chris goes back to main Earth. He walks over. Meanwhile, the soldiers are coming to his house, so he goes back through the door, and the episode ends. So next episode, we're gonna have a big brawl. So we start this episode off 35 years ago, where the family was hunting, and apparently the dad, which later gets found out, shot a weird creature, and then when the creature is like basically like, please don't kill me, in a way, the dad just puts the gun and bam, creature is dead. And then Chris gets scolded because of the fact he was like, no dad, don't. So yeah, that's not really nice. But to be honest, the dad was not really nice in this universe. So then afterwards, the other son, Keith, that's his name. Keith says that, hey dad, there's lights over there. And the creature was heading over there. So they go over there. Meanwhile, Chris finds a box and he picks it up. And then basically they find the door. This is the origin of where they got the door. And basically, here you go. Door is here. Meanwhile, in present day, A.R.G.U.S is coming. And we get some horrible bonding moments in the van, obviously. Chris gets home. He lies on his bed, sees some bullet holes on the walls or on the ceiling. And then he is like, oh my god, what happened? What happened? Goes over to Eagly, gets mad about the fact that Eagly wants to eat his food. Afterwards, John sent a message to Chris, so he's like, what does this mean? Because it was typed in a hurry. He's like, oh no. So he goes and he grabs the box, and then afterwards he lures Eagly with him, and then they run for it. Meanwhile, A.R.G.U.S barges into the house, and they search everywhere for everything. Meanwhile, Judo Master runs after Peacemaker and has a battle with him, and also the Eagle Hunter is going after Eagly and gets a good shot, but once he has that good shot, John pushes him, so he hurts his head. Sadly enough, he doesn't fully forget what happened. It's just he got hit in the back, and then I thought he was dead, but no, he's not dead. Also, Leota gets an ad in a magazine that we'll come back to later on, and then Chris sends her a text being like, help me. So then the Eagle Hunter wakes up and he's like, what happened? And then John is like, well, there must have been another eagle. He's like, that's not possible. Eagles hunt in solos. They do not do that unless this is the primal eagle, the ultimate eagle, the leader of all eagles, the eagle god, if you will. So yeah, I guess we got one of those now. He is gonna be returning eventually to hunt down Eagly once again. So Leota picks up Chris and they need to go somewhere. Chris is like, let's go to Settlers Hill. So they head over there, and Chris basically wants to transfer the special door to the new location. That's what he wants to do. And also in the car, he tells Leota all about the other dimension except for one little detail that gets revealed later on. But outside of that, he tells her basically everything. Dad and brother are alive, and also everything is perfect. So then John calls Peacemaker, and basically Peacemaker's like, stall them. So John goes back inside, and now he has to open up that door, and it's a couple of clicks, and he got that door open, but he has to stall. So while this is happening, they make it to Settlers Hills, and they get to the building, and then Chris opens up the box, and he does a little thing with the box in order for the transfer to start happening. But we have to basically the back and forth with the stalling and transferring the door kind of thing. So the tension is high, and then the transfer is complete with a huge explosion right before the woman gets to open. Like, she opens the door and it instantly closes again, and then afterwards she can't open it anymore until later on when she does, when the transfer is complete, and it's just a closet. And I can't help but think about the fact, like, okay, so wait, that door was transferred, but whenever that door was opened, they were able to sense the door's power, like in that sense. Same with like in the Superman movie. So why are they not sensing it now? Like, the door is open. There is no door, actually. He just put it up in a hallway, and now he needs to put a door there. But like, can't they just sense it again? But whatever, doesn't matter. Anyway, Rick Flag gets called about that because he's back in this episode, and he's a little bit upset about it. And afterwards, he's like, give me the address of Harcourt, who is once again outside getting into fights. So he heads over to Harcourt, and they talk a little bit about his son, and then afterwards, he basically gives the ultimate reveal that everyone probably already knew, and that is the fact that she's been blacklisted from all of the agencies, so she'll never be able to work again. And it was done by Waller, which that's predictable, okay? And I already knew why he was here. That immediately, the moment that he said that, I was like, wait, so that is why you're here. Because he wants her to help him catch Peacemaker, and if she does, he is going to undo the block on her. And she agrees. She doesn't initially want to do it, but she agrees because that's the only way for her to get her life back in order. And this also will help with Peacemaker going back to that other world. Anyway, so now the door has been transferred, so Chris then also tells Leota, who's like, I got an ad in the magazine. He's like, yeah, that's a scam magazine. And then afterwards, he tells her the rest of the story as well. About the fact that the Peacemaker of the other world, because she asks about him, yeah, he's dead. Chris killed him. And then they have a little bit of a talk about it. And I kind of, like, I know online there's speculation about why Peacemaker would ever stay on this Earth when the other one is more perfect. Well, that's because of the fact, like, there's multiple speculation, like it's Earth X or whatever. My guess is just very simple. He killed that universe's version of himself. They're gonna find out, and they're gonna hunt him down, and then he has to kill his brother and his dad, and then he can't go back to the other world anymore. In that sense, like, the truth will be revealed, and that is why Peacemaker's gonna stay in our universe instead of the other one. It's a guess, but I don't think it's really that much of a bad one. However, she also thinks that the other world isn't real, and also kind of just messing with his head, but he kind of stops that. And then Adrian comes to visit because he brought some doors and hinges in order to be able to make a new door and all that stuff. So then Chris, he makes the ultimate decision. He's like, I'm gonna basically base it off of Harcourt. He's text Harcourt to meet up, and he's basically gonna see if this universe is worth living in if Harcourt wants him. If Harcourt doesn't want him, he's gonna go to the other universe in that sense. Yeah, meanwhile, Harcourt tells this to A.R.G.U.S that they're gonna meet up because he wants Peacemaker, like Rick Flag wants Peacemaker. So, yeah, that's gonna be an interesting for the next episode, but also gonna push Peacemaker to the other universe. And then to end the episode, my eyes were burning because we saw the Eagle Hunter do a dance with barely any clothes on, and then afterwards he, I don't know, turns himself into a spirit that is following eagerly to the new location, and now he knows where the new hideout is. So he is gonna come back eventually to hunt down Eagly as well, and I wouldn't really mind it if Eagly actually killed him, to be honest, but I don't know. Could be Peacemaker who does that. We start off this episode with a burial for Rick Flag Jr., where Harcourt makes the promise to Rick Flag Sr. about the fact that, you know, whoever killed your son, I'm gonna make him pay. It's like, yeah, you will. Anyway, so back in present day at the public park, because a meeting always has to be at a public place, Harcourt tests the wire, and then we see how everyone is basically incognito in order to strike once Peacemaker decides to appear. So then Chris arrives. However, he's kind of blending into crowds, all Assassin's Creed style, which I like a lot. Like, he's walking with, like, he's petting dogs. He's walking next to someone who has a baby, like all that stuff. I like it. But he makes it all the way to Harcourt, who is angry because apparently she gave a warning sign to Chris and he ignored it because of the fact that he wants to know if they can be a couple, and she says no. It didn't mean anything, and he's like, is it because of the fact that I killed Rick Flag? It's like, yes. Okay, I loved him, and you killed him, so we can never really be together. And it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, that's the basic one. That's the one that I was thinking of as well as a reason why, one of the reasons why she didn't want to be with Peacemaker. And also why in the other universe she does want to be with Peacemaker, because Rick Flag Jr. is alive. So then, A.R.G.U.S attacks, and the first guy gets tranked in the arm, but gets taken hostage by Chris, who is about to be shot by Bordeaux. And talking about her for a little bit, people online are very upset about this because she's a cyborg. A cyborg, okay? She has cybernetic implants in her body. That's what A.R.G.U.S did to her when she was in like a plane crash or something like that. But people think this is the cyborg. This is the DCU version of cyborg. No, it's not, okay? It's just a woman who has cybernetic implants. It is not cyborg, okay? First of all, half her face needs to be a robot at that point, okay? It's no, calm down. But anyway, she has a cyborg eye, and she is like, I can take the shot, however, it'll kill him. However, at that point, Harcourt then steps in, stops Chris, takes him down. Meanwhile, back at the hideout, Leona gets a call, who's with Adrian, and turns out that is for night work, if you know what I mean. So initially, she's excited until Adrian kind of just like tells it to her. It's like, oh yeah, that's night work. It's like, oh, okay. Okay, lady of the night type of work, eh? So then they go inside, and the Eagle Hunter is here. He has found the place, and he's ready to hunt good old Eagly. So then we go into A.R.G.U.S, and I like how Chris is like, hey, John. It's like, I barely know him, okay? It is, he gets familiar with people, what can I say? I don't really know him at all. I like how he tries to go under that. Anyway, afterwards, Harcourt wants to talk to him, and she basically wants him to put Chris into the system so that Rick can't kill him, because Rick's gonna kill him. And I saw that. Like, I saw that knee attack on, like, Twitter. The entire time was my mom's place. I was, like, scrolling through Twitter, and I was like, dang, man, that's cool. everyone was disgusted by it or felt pain from it. I was just like, yeah, it was awesome. That looks so real. That was so cool. That might have actually really been John Cena. I don't know. But basically, she wants to prevent that. And he's like, no. But then he's like, okay, because of the fact that he is just a little female dog. Meanwhile, the hunter poisons like a dead rodent and throws it for Eagly to eat. And Eagly is playing with the thing. However, then he gets called by Adrian, so he gets distracted. And then afterwards, like a fox or something like that. I don't know animals, to be honest. But anyway, I'm just gonna call that thing a fox. Ninetales appears. Or maybe Vulpix. More of a Vulpix, I'd say, than Ninetales was smaller. But anyway, appears and takes the rodent with it. However, then Eagly follows it, but then eats the rodent, and then the fox dies, which calls for Eagly to be like, I am in danger. That Simpsons mean, I'm in danger. So the Flag tells everyone to leave so he can be alone with Chris, and then he starts beating him up, and he wants Chris to fight back, but Chris refuses to fight back. So then we get the knee shot, dang, so that was a really, like... That felt real, all of the punches. I loved the way that they practically set that up. However, Bordeaux then sees that Chris has been booked by John. So she goes over. Well, she's not happy about it. But anyway, she goes over to tell that to Rick, who now has to let Chris go. Because you can't keep him now. Now that he's been booked, he has to leave. Because of the fact that they don't actually have any substantial evidence against him. And they gotta turn him over to, you know, like cops and stuff. But they don't want to do that looking like that, so they gotta let him go. So then Adrian and Leota, they go into the car in order to pick up Chris, and this is when the fox dies and all that stuff. So then the hunter opens up the case in order to get ready to kill Eagly. So then Chris gets picked up, they drive back. Meanwhile, Judo Master is also following them, and Bordeaux goes over to Rick Flag, and he's like, it was all part of the plan. What can I say? You know, I wanted him to be beat up so that he would lead Judo Master straight back. It was all part of the plan. Also, me calling you to shoot, that was part of the plan as well, because I knew that Harcourt would stop it. But it was all part of the plan. Calm down, okay? Calm down. Now that you are looking fine today. I don't know. There's some kind of romance forming between the two that I don't really care about. So then on the way home, Adrian is a little bit upset about the fact that Chris keeps talking to Leota, but not to him. Like, he keeps talking about and to her. He keeps saying her name, but not Adrian, like Adrian isn't even here at all. However, Chris is broken by what Harcourt said and about what Harcourt did. So he is done with this. That's what he says. So then they get back to base. Chris gets out. They want to stay, but he's like, no, I need to be alone. When they drive away, he's like, Eagly! He calls for his bird. However, Eagly is busy basically being the prime eagle and basically gathering a bunch of eagles in order to kill the eagle hunter, which happens, by the way, so that's fun. So Judo then calls base. Eagly comes home, and then Chris writes a note about the fact that, you know, he's gonna leave forever, never coming back. Goodbye forever. So then when he's done with the note, he opens up the box and he does the thing with the box in order to close the portal, I guess. However, this time, before closing the portal, he goes through the portal. So then Judo wants to say this to base, but electrical interference gotta cause that to not happen at all. So then he writes a note as well, and is basically saying that he's gonna follow, and that's what he does. So before the portal closes, he went through as well in order to follow Peacemaker. And I feel like this is why Peacemaker has to return to our dimension, because he's gonna kind of squeal a little bit and ruin everything for Peacemaker. That's why he has to come back. I know people want to say it's racism and all that stuff. I don't know. Maybe it is. Hey, maybe you're gonna be correct. Maybe it is gonna be racism. Who's to say? Also, before he left, he also sent Leota a text about the fact that he's leaving in that sense, so that she can come, find the note, and tell it to everyone. So then they arrive. The door is gone. So they pick up the thing, but also find out that Judo Master went after Chris. But they pick up the thing, and then they leave. And then when the whole gang is together, she reads the note in the 2 November Rain, which fitting song, by the way. And Chris basically in the note says he's never coming back because of the fact that Harcourt said no, and also because she was a C word, and also that he wants them to give the dimensional box to A.R.G.U.S to clear their own names. That way everything is fixed, right? You know, they'll be able to go on with their lives. Adrian is broken by this because of the fact that he was basically Peacemaker's bestie in his own head, so his bestie left without even saying goodbye. Which, by the way, the abuse that Vigilante gets from Peacemaker, he can handle. It's just the fact that saying goodbye without counting in Adrian, is what breaks him. So then Harcourt is like, no, we're not gonna give this over to Argus. Instead, we're gonna get Chris back. Because maybe Leota remembers the combination that is needed in order to open up the portal once again. But we are gonna get Chris back. That is it. And that's how the episode ends. So the family on Earth X is having dinner at the cafe with Amelia Harcourt. And then the kids want to take some pictures. So the picture gets taken, obviously. So then we go back to our Earth for the rest of this for like a big chunk of this episode. Because the gang needs a place in order to open up another portal. Which I still find stupid that they can't detect it anymore. But whatever. That is also kind of a plot point in this episode. And I'll talk about that later. But anyway, we go to Adrian's place. Because who knows who Adrian is. And apparently Adrian had decided to tell his mom that he was in a relationship with Harcourt. However, it ended because she is an SLUT, boys. So, yeah, we get a whole thing about that, which I actually thought was actually funny. It was awkward, but it was funny too. And also, when we get into Adrian's secret lair, turns out that he has taken the drugs and money from drug dealers that he has taken out over the years, and he just has like a room full of money and drugs. Like, what? Why? So then, Leota puts the thing down. She opens up the portal door, obviously. First, everything gets sucked in. Then everything gets blasted back. Everyone gets drugs all over them, which is going to be a plot point later on. However, the thing is this was not as violent as the other time. Like, the other time when Chris opened it at the shed, like, that was violent. This time, it wasn't really all that violent. Like, Chris had to leave the house. This time, they could just stand at the other end of the room. But the portal opens up. They go through it, and they see the xenomorph creature once again, so that's nice. And he still doesn't say hello back. So now they're searching for which door is correct, and they find the stack of Peacemaker helmets, and they know which door it is. However, now we need the code. Luckily enough, Adrian knows the code, so they put in the code. Door opens up. They go through the door, and welcome to a brave new world. That's a Star Set reference. So they explore the house a little bit. However, as they get to Chris's room, everyone has to hide except for Harcourt because the brother is home, which we didn't know. And apparently Chris is at A.R.G.U.S, and apparently Harcourt kind of talks her way into like, oh, I was here for this thing, this snow globe. And luckily enough, she grabbed the only thing that their mother left them. So, hey, luck of the draw, I guess. And then he offers her a ride, and she accepts, so they go on a ride. Also, Adrian wants to find his other self, so he heads out in order to find his other self. So then Chris, turns out he is not at A.R.G.U.S, instead is at Harcourt's place, and she's under the shower, and Chris is like, I'm gonna go to A.R.G.U.S, you coming with? She's like, I'll arrive later, don't worry about it. So he goes to A.R.G.U.S alone. So then the brother and Harcourt, they get to A.R.G.U.S, and when they get inside, the dog starts to bark because of the fact that, well, she got sprayed with some drugs. So that was not necessarily the smartest idea. So she gets put in a room, but before she gets put in a room, Chris walks in, sees her. So she gets put in a room. He goes eventually to the room as well in order to have a discussion with her because of the fact that, well, they weren't supposed to come here, or at least she wasn't supposed to come here. And also, he wants to know whether she loves him. And also, they have a little bit talk about Rick Flag Jr., about how he cheated on Enchantress in order to be with Harcourt. Meanwhile, Adrian, he gets to his house. He opens up the door, goes downstairs, and apparently the keys work on the lock. So he opens up the secret lair, and in there, he sees himself. And initially, it looks like this is a darker version of, like, Adrian, but no, absolutely not. He's just the same guy. Absolutely the same guy. There's nothing different between the two universes. Also, at A.R.G.U.S, Rick Flag is very upset about all of the bad stuff that has happened, and also the fact that John and Harcourt are MIA as well. So he wants to go to Bell Reef Prison in order to meet a prisoner, which was already teased for a while now that he was going to do this. So he goes over to that prison, and it's Lex! Dude, like, I know people were stating that maybe it wasn't going to be Lex because we got, like, preview images of later on in the season, and in the preview images, which, by the way, I couldn't find an image of Lex. That is why I did not put Lex Luthor in the thumbnail. Instead, I put the Nazi flag in the thumbnail. But anyway, yeah, he's here because of the fact that he wants to help Lex out in a way, in order to help himself out, obviously. And that is the fact he wants to make a deal. I am here to bargain, Dormammu. And he needs help fighting the portal. So Lex apparently has a scanner, but Lex is like, what am I gonna get in return? And Flag is like, redemption. And I'm like, what? What is that even supposed to mean? What do you mean, the redemption? Okay, he's also gonna be transferred out of the metahuman prison into a normal prison, which I feel like he's gonna break out of with the greatest of ease. But still, what does redemption mean? That's not really a good bargaining trick. Also, I've seen some people say that he feels different from his Superman days. Well, Superman was a couple of months ago. He's been utterly defeated since then and put in prison, so his attitude probably changed a bit. Also, I forgot to say that Harcourt and Chris, they argued also about the betrayal, which was never a betrayal to begin with. We cleared it up. But basically, Chris wants to know how she feels about him, and she's like, I'm a mess, so basically I can't feel anything in that sense. So even if I wanted to love you, I couldn't, that kind of stuff. So then also, Chris doesn't want to go back because of the fact that here his brother and his dad are alive. They are not absolute garbage, at least not yet. And also, he's dating this universe's version of Harcourt, so everything seems to be perfect. So then they walk through A.R.G.U.S. Meanwhile, the Harcourt of this universe arrives as well, so that's not really good. So then Adrian and other Adrian, they talk, and I respect him because he said his favorite Pokemon is Infernape. I love Infernape as well, big fan of Infernape, but also it is respect because it's not a Kanto Pokemon. And this kind of makes up for trash-talking Pokemon earlier in this season. This makes up for it, okay, Adrian? Mad respects, but you should have said Sceptile. I'm still saying that. That is the best Pokemon ever, I don't care. But Infernape is a really good choice as well. I'm also a huge Infernape fan. The best fire-fighting type starter and one of the best fire starters ever. I don't really know who is better, but actually Infernape might be my favorite fire-type starter Pokemon ever, now that I think about it. Maybe. We'll put a pin in that one. That is a maybe. Also, Adrian loves Peacemaker, but other Adrian hates Peacemaker and apparently is part of the Sons of Liberty, so that is not good. So Leota decides to go for a walk, which, yeah, that's not a good idea because there's a woman who drives by and sees Leota and then immediately has like this look of disgust on her face and is like, ah, boy, yeah, okay. Also, the dad comes home and John now has to basically fight the dad, so that doesn't really go well. So then he decides to spill all the secrets to the dad, which is like, excuse me, what? He's like, look, I'm from a different universe and Peacemaker killed your son. It's like, what? Why would you say that last part? That first part was enough. So, yeah, the cat is out of the bag. So then everyone, also the brother drives by, sees Leota as well, but everyone gets out of their houses and start chasing Leota because, well, what Harcourt and Chris learn to end the episode. And that is the fact that, well, I don't know if it ends the episode. But anyway, Chris looks on a desk, grabs the American flag, and god dang it, Nazi symbol on there. Instead of the stars on there, you got the Nazi symbol. And I know people are going to use that. Like, lefties are going to make that thing their profile picture, for crying out loud. Which is weird, but whatever. Anyway, yeah, Earth X. This is not Earth 2. This is Earth X. I was almost happy to be on Earth 2, but nope. Earth X instead. And to be honest, I don't necessarily mind the fact that they are using the story of Earth X, but it's just the fact that there were no black people. Also, by the way, when I saw the picture initially, I was going to defend it in a way where it's like, well, to be honest, the people who live here, they don't know any better. The Nazis conquered this world, and they don't know, like, the kids that are growing up now, they are not inherently evil. However, they just grew up in the Nazi world in that sense. They don't know about another world. But then at the end of the episode, it's like, one of the blacks escaped, and I'm like, ah, for crying out loud. So they do know about black people. So apparently they do have black people in camps. God dang it. I was gonna defend it, but now I am retracting my statement. I'm distancing myself from all the people here on this earth because I thought, you know, Earth X, you know, like, that was like 80 years ago when the Nazis won the World War. So, you know how Nazis would do. They would kind of strip away all of history and be like, yeah, black people never existed to begin with. They don't exist. Goodbye. That kind of stuff. Who is even Martin Luther King Jr.? Who even is that fellow? I think he appeared in a Linkin Park song, but outside of that, who is he? But like that kind of stuff. And it's like, no, they actually just have black people in camps, which kind of find that weird because why do you allow them to reproduce? Because eventually I feel like black people would just die out if they did not reproduce, kind of like every other species. But the fact that black people are still around kind of makes me think that they allow black people to reproduce? Really? Like, I thought they would put a stop there, but whatever. Anyway, yep, Nazi Earth. So this episode, obviously at the end of the last episode, we had the fact that, you know, it's like, hey, Nazi world. So then Harcourt 2 comes in with guards, is like, arrest her. However, then Harcourt, our Harcourt, is like, how did you miss the mural of Hitler? It's like, he looks behind him, giant mural of Hitler. He's like, how did I miss that? Like, I get the flags, you know, it's little things like that, but a giant mural, of course. So now Peacemaker and Harcourt have to fight in order to be able to escape Nazi A.R.G.U.S. Meanwhile, Adrian 2 tells Adrian about the fact fact that this is Nazi world, and then Adrian tells Adrian too that our world is not Nazi world, because there are, well, I mean, yeah, there are those Neo bricks, but like, we don't have actual Nazis in our world, which is a good thing, you know, like, Nazis are bad, which is something I'll come back to later on in the episode, because there's something that happens which I'm perfectly okay with, because of, you know, the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So then when Adrian says, hey, I came with a black woman, yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a problem in this world, so we gotta go and rescue Leota. Meanwhile, Leota's being chased down. However, Keith gets a call from Dad to come home because of new information, and then afterwards Leota climbs a fence and she runs, and I'm like, run, you fat bend, run! I don't want you to die. Maybe exercise once in a while, that'll be able to help, because it sounded like she was out of breath. She's like, she was running like that. But she decides to jump in the pool. I don't know what she thinks she's gonna accomplish with that one. So everyone else goes into the pool. Then Judo Master is there, who I did not expect to see. He pulls her out of the pool, which, dude, you gotta have some strength for that one. That is a lot of weight. And then afterwards, he uses like a telephone cord in order to be able to kill everyone in the pool. Which normally, you know, Lord, so many deaths, but this time it's Nazis, so who cares, you know? Who cares? They're Nazis. Let them all die. Let every Nazi into a pool and shock them all to death, okay? Nazis are scum of the earth. We all know that stuff. But yeah, Leota is safe, so that's at least a good thing. Fantastic. Meanwhile, Chris and A.R.G.U.S are trying to escape A.R.G.U.S, and they get to the entrance, but there are cops everywhere, or A.R.G.U.S soldiers everywhere. So then Chris like, hold on to me. So she holds on to him, and he activates his jetpack and goes straight through the glass instead of the door. And then afterwards, they get on the peace cycle, and he's like, is the door big enough? Because I want to take this peace cycle home with me. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So then Keith comes home. Dad shows him John, and then afterwards tells him that, yeah, Chris is not really, he killed your brother. Not really a good guy. He's not the Chris that we know, okay? I mean, he's a good guy, but he's not the Chris that we know. And also, he talks about the fact that he, used to go, like, a couple years ago, he went through the portal, and there he met an alternate version, our version of Dad, and it seemed like he came from a much darker world, and it's like, well, that's because he's a racist. So obviously, when you see black people, Hispanic people, and any other type of people, gay people, and all that stuff, people around, he's gonna have a bit of a hissy fit, and he's not gonna be happy about the world that he lives in, because, you know, he hates them all, which is why it's a good thing he's dead. Even though I'm still the kind of person who wishes he was in jail instead, you know, like maximum security prison, that kind of stuff, where he couldn't escape. However, this is a superhero story, so death is probably better, because in a classic superhero story, everyone escapes jail, so it doesn't really matter. So then Keith also is like, well, A.R.G.U.S was different as well. I mean, she wore pants. I've known the girl for 10 years. She's never worn pants in her life. It's like, okay, that's at least a good thing, because I thought all women here were supposed to wear skirts, you know. But it's a good thing that, you know, some women wear pants, but it's only her who does not. So then Judo Master tells Leota that the Nazis won World War II, and also about the fact that we have to wait until nighttime in order to go back to the other house in order to be able to go back to our world. And he apparently commandeered a house that was, well, whose owners are gone. So that's good. So that Peacemaker is riding away. Cops are following him, or A.R.G.U.S or whatever, but they're being followed. So then afterwards they get cornered, and then boom, explosion happens. The family comes down, kills the cops, and then the dad is like, if you want to live, come with us. And I'm like, well, I don't really know if that's necessarily true. I mean, you know the truth, so I don't know. But also the reason that the dad is saving Chris is because of the fact that he doesn't want the portal out. That's going to be very important for this episode. Meanwhile, in our world, Flag gets Luther's super genius to find the portal, who actually does find the portal, so that's fun. So then Leota tries to convince Judo Master of the fact that Chris is actually a good guy. He's not the bad guy that everyone believes that he is. So Chris and A.R.G.U.S with family return home, and that is when the truth gets revealed. All of the truth about the fact that, yes, your Chris is dead, and he died not really by my hands, but I just activated his jetpack because of the fact that, you know, he was trying to kill me, and Keith is very upset about that, but the dad really isn't. He's not necessarily all that upset about it. And basically, the dad wants to send the gang home. And even then, we talk about the fact, we got a black woman with us. And he's like, I don't care. I want to send you all home. And it's like, you know, maybe this one isn't all that bad. You know, can we take him with us? Can we take him with us? You know, this guy isn't really all that bad. Which is also set up for the ending of the episode. But he wants everyone to just get out, okay? He wants everyone home. Probably because of the fact that he doesn't want the cops to know about the portal device that he has in his house. Keith, however, is not necessarily too happy about that because he wants Chris dead. But before that can get any further, the cops arrive at the door. Also, the dad believes that Chris did not do it on purpose, which is actually a good thing. But anyway, he goes to the door and he's like, get out. You're not getting in here without a warrant. Get out. He basically just closed the door on them. So then vigilantes arrive, and Leota is reunited with Adrian. That's fantastic. And then vigilantes want to kill the cops, and then Judo's like, yeah, I do too, actually. And I'm like, well, normally I would be 100% against this, you know, because cops are just trying to do their jobs. Yes, there are racist cops as well. They are a problem, but not every cop is a racist cop, okay? But like, we shouldn't kill them. But also then I'm like, yeah, but these are Nazis. So I'm like, go ahead, have fun. The world is your oyster. Come on, kill them all. I do not care, because these are Nazis, so who cares? But Leola's like, let's just try and sneak our way in, okay? Let's just not go on the offensive. And I'm like, oh man. Also, Harcourt kind of presses the dad about the fact, like, you're all Nazis. He's like, I'm not a Nazi, okay? I'm just living in the world that has been created, okay? I cannot change it. I mean, I could fight, but I'll probably die, so I can't change it. I'm just trying to do the best that I can, which makes me go, so he's not racist. Like, this is actually a good version of the dad. Wow, okay, so if the dad wasn't racist, then Keith would have been alive. Wow, okay. All of the pieces are coming together, you know? I'm actually sad about the ending of this episode, because of the fact that when he starts talking about that stuff, Vigilante just jumps in and stabs him to death. So it's like, oh no, why? So now we gotta run. We gotta escape. So then we get to the library in order to open up the portal. However, then Keith comes through the door in order to kill Chris, but the gang then attack and stab Keith, who isn't dead yet. But Chris is then like, stop, get off of him, he's still my brother. I'm so sorry, brother, I'm so sorry, okay? I didn't mean for this to happen. And then he's like, I'm the bad guy here because of the fact that everyone dies around me. And then we get a flashback to Rick Flag. We get a flashback to the dad. We get an even flashier back to the time that he killed his brother. However, it is time to leave, so everyone leaves except for Harcourt. And he tells Adrian to give me your gun because he wants to kill Keith because you're not coming after us. So she puts the gun to his head, but then the cops come in, so she can't kill him, so she has to escape. Adrian too closes the door and fights off the cops. Hopefully he's alive because he's a Pokemon fan just like me, which means that he's my favorite character on the show. It's that easy, boys. You have a Pokemon fan on your show, it's instant favorite character. Meanwhile, in our world, A.R.G.U.S surrounds Adrian's house. So then everyone gets through the portal. Chris closes the portal, closes the box, and then afterwards heads outside with everyone else. And he gives the portal to A.R.G.U.S, and then he's like, look, okay, they all came in to convince me to give it up to you guys. Basically, he is trying to protect his friends while basically sacrificing himself. So, obviously, Chris gets arrested because of the fact that Judo Master confirms that this is the truth. So he gets arrested, and then to end the episode, Keith in the underworld, he is still alive, he's getting treatment, and he's probably gonna come back in the finale when, you know, he wants to kill Chris, which I don't really know how to, I mean, I know how it's going to happen, obviously. I mean, A.R.G.U.S is gonna open up the portal, which will cause Keith to be able to come through and find Chris and kill him, that kind of stuff, or at least that's what he wants. And then Chris has to kill his brother again, just like he did when they were younger. Let's get into the finale then, shall we? So, 1 month ago, Chris was on a date with Harcourt, as we know. Well, quote-unquote on a date. It's not necessarily a date, but I'm gonna call it a date. But they were at Big Belly Burger, because, of course, this episode needs a sponsor. And then afterwards, when they leave, Harcourt almost gets into a fight with a guy who calls her hot, which, sure, punch people who call you hot. Like, he was paying you technically a compliment. Like, he was not doing anything wrong, okay? Sure, next time you see a woman, call her ugly. Just call her ugly. Apparently, that's what needs to happen. Like, he did not really do anything wrong. He was like, ooh, and that's all he did. So, but anyway, she wants to pick a fight with him. Chris breaks it up, luckily enough, which she hates because she's a strong, independent woman, that kind of stuff. And then later on, Harcourt tells Chris to be nice to Adrian, and it's like, I agree. Hey, Harcourt, I agree with you, okay? Look, that stuff from before, I am 100% against you, but now I agree with you. Well, I couldn't agree more, okay? Yes, Chris should be nicer to Adrian. But then, later on, Chris sees the rock cruise, and that is where the magic happened between the two of these characters, and what Chris has been talking about all season. So in present day, Chris is in jail, and he doesn't want to see the gang. Doesn't care about them at all. Meanwhile, A.R.G.U.S is exploring the door. They figured out how to open up the door, and now they are exploring around in the room of doors to see which doors can be opened. A lot of these doors are locked, except for door 22, which is unlocked. They open it up and it's Candyland inside, and they go inside. However, then tiny creatures come from the grass and start attacking, kind of like those things from Transformers Prime, which just eat you alive. But basically, yeah, those things kind of start attacking here, which is a little bit of a problem. and then they also cut the rope so that they can be pulled back, and then also close the door so they can't go back. So then while they are basically trying to kill the group, by the way, the only one of the gang who is part of the group is Harcourt, so she is really the only one that I care about. But to be honest, Langston I also kind of care about outside of that comment about Pokemon. You still apologize for that stuff, okay? But anyway, eventually, Argus gets the door open, everyone goes out. However, sadly enough, we lost someone very dear to us. Someone named Klein. Sure, I don't really care, to be honest. Like, I did not care about him in the slightest. I think that actor was actually also in She-Hulk, and he was more memorable in She-Hulk than he was here. But apparently, Argus is looking for a place that is habitable. That is why they are exploring all the doors for suspicious reasons. Meanwhile, Eagly is also sad about the fact that Chris has been locked up, and A.R.G.U.S goes to Adrian, and he's playing Princess Peach game on the Switch, which I actually thought was funny. And it wasn't the Switch too, because that idiot hadn't released yet. But A.R.G.U.S wants to use the money that Adrian has in order to hire a competent lawyer for Chris, which is kind of a weird thing that they're saying because of something that happens later on, but we'll get there eventually. And also, he's like, no, we're not gonna use the cursed money and all that stuff. So then she's like, but I'm better friends with Chris because I want to use the money. And then he's like, no, I'm better friends with Chris. We'll use the money. So they pay for bail. And I'm like, what? I thought you were gonna hire a competent lawyer. What do you mean you're paying bail? You can do that? So then Chris returns home, picks up Eagly, and then afterwards leaves town. So then we get a bit of a montage of Argus finding different doors. We got a black hole door, a spider skeleton door, which I think actually we already saw that one earlier in the season, and also a door leading to The Walking Dead, where one person turns into a zombie, gets shot in the head, which I thought was actually fun. But then they open up another door, and it turns out there's just a grass field here. Doesn't really seem to be any monsters or anything, so this could be a perfect place. So then Harcourt brings that info to Rick Flag Sr., and he's like, yes, this is exactly what we need. And then later on, he at like a council meeting or something like that, he calls the planet Salvation, and he wants to send meta-human prisoners over there because of the fact that if we send them to Arkham or other places, they break out easily because they got superpowers, for crying out loud. But we need a supermax prison, kind of like what the MCU has, or well, I don't really know how much of use they make, but Marvel technically has one. And this could be we could just send the people to the planet. We can also keep changing where the door opens so that they can't escape anymore, which I'm like, well, it depends on the metahuman power, to be honest. However, Bordeaux isn't necessarily too happy about this, and she decides to leave, calls Harcourt, and then they meet up at Belly Burger because sponsorship and all that stuff. So then she tells Harcourt everything about the door, and then Harcourt's like, you're a metahuman, right? This is treason, right? Yeah, okay. Just so you know, if this gets found out, you get sent to that planet as well. You're you're risking a lot here, which also means that she is doing the right thing. And then afterwards, Harcourt introduces her to A.R.G.U.S, and I guess now Bordeaux is going to join the squad, so maybe now she can get rid of that ugly nose ring, and everything will be fine, because that thing is just like, I hate that. I hate piercings. I hate nose rings. Tattoos are I haven't fully formed an opinion yet on tattoos, but like, I do not find those things attractive. Let's just say that. But then Harcourt goes into the bathroom, and she sees the ticket that she had hidden apparently in the mirror about the rock cruise, and then she has another memory of it. And then afterwards she snaps back and she's like, hey Bordeaux, you got Chris clearance because we gotta find Peacemaker now. And she does. So then they go back to Argus. However, the Lex guy that is there, he can see everything that Bordeaux is doing, which I feel like we're giving him way too much power, but whatever. Anyway, doesn't matter. John has to distract him, which he does horribly, by the way, but he barely is able to distract him. So we get the location, so then afterwards the gang, one by one, they didn't all go at the same time apparently, but one by one they all show up, and then Adrian tackles Chris and tases him so that we can take him into the hotel room. And then we have a little bit of a talk. Chris is like, I'm cursed. And A.R.G.U.S like, look, I know who I am because of you. You make me feel loved. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know? I love the relationship that A.R.G.U.S and Peacemaker have in this show. Look, I don't care about A.R.G.U.'s personal life or that security firm that she was doing. I couldn't care less about that stuff. But I love her connection to Peacemaker. Big fan of that. That is why I care about her as a character, and I don't want anything bad to happen to her her as a character, which is why I was like, no ads. Well, technically, I was like that when I was watching the episode 6, I think, of Peacemaker, where everyone was like, a black escaped. I was like, no ads. Why couldn't it have been a different black? I like her. I don't want anything bad to happen to her. So then later on, everyone leaves, but Chris goes outside and he asks Harcourt once again about the boat, and she finally says it meant everything to her. So then afterwards, 1 week later, the gang uses the drug money, apparently in order to buy an office building, and also Langston and Judo Master have joined the squad as well, and apparently they are now a team called Checkmate. Sure, why not? And then also Chris and Harcourt went back to the rock cruise once again, so maybe they are together now after all. And then later, after the rock cruise, when returning home, Chris gets captured by A.R.G.U.S, and they strand him on Salvation, and Rick Flag is like, this is an experiment to see if people can actually survive here, because of the fact that if people can't survive here, we might not be able to do it. And then he closes the door before Chris can return, and then there's a bunch of growling, and that's how it ends. So that was the edited spoiler talk version that I released. Alright, now that we're done with that, let me talk about this a little bit more spoilery. So people are saying that Rick Flag does not feel like Rick Flag. I don't necessarily fully agree with that one, as the same character from like Creature Commandos, and that's because of the fact that while yes, he feels different, you can see that the tone is different. This time he is very much on the hunt for Peacemaker, and he has a little Lex on his shoulder yelling in his ear. That is what the final episode, I feel like, tries to make clear. You got Lex Luthor on his shoulder basically whispering in his ear how bad the metahumans are, and that has changed him. So while I don't think this is character assassination, or they feel like two different characters, I mean, they do to me, but that's because he doesn't have, you know, silver gray hair. He doesn't have that stuff. However, I will say that in my own headcanon, he dyed his hair during Creature Commandos so that he could have that, but then he decided the look wasn't cool enough, so he got rid of it. But overall, for me, like, that is the big thing. And also the thing that James Gunn said that he wasn't going to do, he did in this season. He said each project is going to stand on its own, yet this heavily sets up whatever comes next, which I actually hopefully still have that tab open. Yes, I do. Apparently, there was going to be, like, it is inspired by something called Salvation Run, a storyline in the comic books. So that is apparently what James Gunn was teasing with the end of Peacemaker, and also it will be a part of the DCU going forward, which would be nice if this is actually true, because unlike in, you know, Batman, which hasn't appeared at all, and like that movie's kind of in limbo, I want this to happen. But my biggest problem with this season is just we have no future. Yes, James Gunn can say, oh yeah, Peacemaker will return in some way. Also, yes, we're doing Salvation Run, and the characters from Peacemaker will return. We don't have a sequel or a next season announced. James Gunn, I think, said that there is no season 3 planned for Peacemaker, and also he didn't announce like a what was the team called? I forgot what the team's name was. But basically, he didn't announce like a sequel series either, which I feel like are the biggest drawbacks for this season overall. But while I still very much enjoyed this season, I did have to take it down a little bit because of the fact of that finale, because I was expecting more. Also, what about that setup with his brother from Earth X? What about that? What about the whole Earth X thing? We go there, then we escape there, fine, but the brother is alive. If the brother was dead, I wouldn't have complained at all. But I thought the brother was gonna play more of a role in the finale, or maybe a third season. But we're not getting, apparently, a third season. Also, something I forgot to say in that episode talk, because of the fact that I was tired, was the fact that Rick Flag not only sends Peacemaker there because of, you know, experimentation to see if it can actually be a prison, but instead he also sends Peacemaker there because of the fact of what happened to his son. And also, I don't really think that what Rick Flag is doing is really all that evil, because of the fact that the thing is, like, what they're saying online is not true, okay? In the episode, it is stated that they want to send meta-human prisoners. You know, bad guys, villains, people like the Reverse Flash, for example. People like that. They want to send him into this Salvation world. That is where he wants to send them. He doesn't want to send them, like, he doesn't want to send the good heroes, like, for example, Flash or Superman, over to this world. People are thinking he's gonna send, like, everyone over there. No. So I wanted to kind of nip that one. And also, what about the Creature Commandos, it seemed like, you know, Rick Flag was buddy-buddy. Well, we don't really know the full plan of what Salvation Earth is going to look like, you know? Even though it feels like they're gonna be sending prisoners there over the course of the next couple of years of the DCU, only for the villains to figure out a way back. And that's going to be Salvation Run, maybe in a Justice League movie, used to say. But he doesn't want to say, like, when I looked online, everybody, it seemed like, talked about the fact that Rick Flag wants to send all metahumans there. No, just the bad ones, which is understandable. And also, he thinks, or at least he's testing it out right now, that it is just a normal planet. They could have just opened up the door to the black hole and sent all the bad guys in, but no, we're sending them to a world which has grass, trees, the air is good to breathe. We're not killing them, you know? So it is better than potentially also rotting in a prison. But also, I feel like this is entirely because of Lex, and it's going to be potentially a future storyline down the line, obviously with Salvation Run. But that is really all the extra bits that I have to say right now about Peacemaker Season 2. So, thank you all so very much for watching the spoiler talk for Peacemaker Season 2. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys thought about Peacemaker Season 2, spoiler filled obviously, in that comment section down below. And with that being said, I do hope you guys have enjoyed, and if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new with us, turn on notifications, don't forget to check out the Let's Play channel, link in the description, and at the end of the video, in about an hour or so, maybe half an hour, I don't actually know how long this video is going to be, but let's say half an hour. In half an hour, you guys can actually see Pokemon Legends ZA on that channel, so maybe you could check that out as well. Support the other channel would be nice. But anyway, next week we're continuing on with the MCU once again. Bye!